Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today we're talking about a topic that might make some people angry, but ideas aren't everything. And a lot of people spend a lot of time coming up with ideas and brainstorming. But what really matters is when you have an idea, how do you make it come to life? How do you go from idea to execution? This is one of my favorite topics, and we're going to dive in today with a very special guest, Tristan Palou. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
So did I get that right? I mean, a lot of people love coming up with ideas, but when they bring you in, what do they say? Do they give you a little bit of pushback on the execution piece, or where do most people find themselves in this discussion?
Yeah, exactly. I think I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and they think that they have a great idea, and that the idea really is what makes a big difference. And I always tell them that absolutely not. You have very good businesses that have not a great idea, but they're very good at executing that idea, building a business that is sustainable. And then people have great ideas, and it will never turn into a successful business because the path from idea to execution is just too narrow.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even with existing businesses developing new product lines, new service, whatever it is, I mean, a lot of people love to come up with the ideas, but the part that I see that lacks most often is the execution or the even just a plan to make that come about. So when you're working with people, do you help them in coming up with the ideas, or are you coming in after the idea has been born, so to speak, and then we go right to execution?
I always come after, and if I come at the point where they're not sure about the idea, I'm not too involved in that moment because I don't feel I'm the best placed. I'm external advisor, external consultant. So I come here, I won't know the business. I won't know as well as someone who has been there or has matured an idea over time. So I come at this moment where I will probe the idea and I will probe the plan. And if there is no plan, then we'll work on a plan. But I think it's always important to put your ideas on paper as a start to see if it's doable. And then this is where you're going to see the missing parts. And this is when you're going to look at the various bits and pieces and say, hey, actually, this won't work, or I have a challenge with this. And so it's where, you turn that idea into an actual business, an actual product.
So is there such a thing as a good or bad idea, or is it more of just ideas that get executed or not?
I think for me, there are bad ideas in the sense that they're too hard to implement or execute. Remember talking to an entrepreneur, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to do vegan meals in airplanes. And I said, fine, but it's going to be very hard to execute. You're going to go in and the airlines are going to say, hey, do X millions of dishes per day. So starting from scratch, and they're going to pay you after. So this kind of bad ideas for me, because from the idea to the execution is going to be just too complicated. So a good idea for me is something simple, something that can be developed without a lot of capital. For me, usually it's a good idea that can stand on its 2 feet without a huge amount of external capital. Maybe it's not great to say that, but like if someone says, hey, I'm going to build a new AI, fantastic. It's going to require billions. But if you tell me I have this idea, think this is the first steps, this is how I build my business, I have a clear vision on the execution, this is for me a good idea.
Okay. So let's assume we have an idea. We're not going to call it good or bad just yet, but we need help executing it. We need to actually make this thing come about, this new product, this new service. What are some of the things that you do? You said, I know you mentioned before, you kind of try to poke holes in it and put it on paper and see where we're at with this. But what does it take? What does that process look like to go from idea to at least the first testing phase?
So I think you need a bit of planning. Planning might sound boring, but putting your ideas on paper. I'm not saying writing a 50-page document, but just the few key parts. Is that like what is the distribution looking like, the marketing and comms of your product. I think for me it always comes back to the basics, which is what are you selling, who are you selling it to, how are you selling it, and at what price. Basically, once you've answered these questions, so answer these questions, and then you start to build around it. You say, hey, my clients are this type of customers. I don't know, like I want to launch a restaurant. Okay, fine. Who are your customers? What are you selling? What are you selling them to? So what is your product? What type of food are you going to do? What's the price? Where are you opening your restaurant? So answering a bunch of questions before testing your ideas. And then, as you say, I think quickly enough, you need to go talk to your customers, talk to them, get some feedback before going full on and developing something, or actually, like that case, opening a restaurant. If you can test your food, do pop-ups, test your food, test what people think of it before signing on a lease. So yeah, iterating, but most of it, yeah, putting things on paper. But a good exercise I like to do usually with people is with this idea, with this business. 1 year from now, where do you see this? Like what is success looking like in the medium term, short to medium term? Because this helps a bit knowing the resources you have to put in front of this idea. Look, I want a mobile app within a year and then X thousands of users. Sure. That means a development team. That means, like that much of these different parts. So this is, this kind of brainstorming I tend to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, just thinking about recent conversations that I've had with people, they want really big outcomes in, I would say, relatively short periods of time. And then you ask them what's their plan to get there, and they're like, I don't know, I'm just going to make it happen. I love the ambition. I really do. A+ for that. But at the same time, I mean, if you're walking through life without a plan, how can you expect to get there? So for you, when you're talking about 1 year out, where do you want to be in a year? If someone comes up with, let's just say, a big thing, they want 1 million users on an app, and they don't even have an app at this point. Do you go through the planning process first, or do you try to maybe scale back that initial goal? What's a better way to approach that?
I think what I tend to do is break it down, which makes people realize that it's not feasible, like a lot of the time. I want to be market leader in a year, sure. So let's break it down into what needs to happen this year. Okay, let's break it down into what needs to happen this quarter before anything else. And then you're like, okay, fine. So in the next 12 weeks, you've raised 10 million, and then you've built a team of 50 people. And then people realize, okay, this is not going to happen. I'm a big fan of getting things done and moving. And it's true, like you do need to do that when you're an entrepreneur. You can't just, as I said, you can't make a plan of 50 pages and just look at it and waiting to see if it's gonna work on itself. So you do need to make things happen, but having a clear path. So for me, it's always important to have this vision clear, and then kind of the big pillars of your plan clear. And then what happens tactically to make it happen? This is where I'm gonna get things done. Fine, but you need that direction. So I guess this is what I do. I would break it down into a plan so that they don't have to believe me. They just have to believe like these numbers. Um, if you tell me you want to go in a certain direction, I believe you. But then let's talk real stuff. What needs to happen in the next few weeks? And this is how you realize that actually you cannot, and you scale back your ambition a bit. It doesn't mean that this business is not going to be market leader. It just takes you a bit of time, and you need to build that foundation. And even with hockey stick, like you can do whatever you want, but still you need to build that foundation, that team, that tech, and that takes time. Like sometimes time is not you can't compress time to you can do a lot of things, you can be super productive, but there's just so many hours. And even when you pay some guys to build your tech, they're going to tell you, look, it's taking 3 months. I can put more people on it, it's still going to take 3 months. It's just sometimes you just have to work with that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And one of the things you said that was interesting is, so you have the vision, you have the kind of outcome you're shooting for, whatever that is, you have the plan, but then there's the tactical piece, and that's the actual execution of what you're doing. It's the what are you doing every single day to make sure you get there. So assuming we have a vision and we have a plan at this point to some degree, what does the tactical piece look like to make sure that we're doing the most efficient things, the most effective things? And also what's the consistency of that? Because the reason I asked that question is I think we're all squirrels these days. We have attention spans of 5 seconds, and if something doesn't work immediately, we want to change our minds. But you and I both know that that doesn't work in executing on a massive project, right? So what does that look like in terms of selecting tasks and activities, and also the consistency of execution?
So I think once you have your plan, I would define objectives. So what do you need to achieve? So for instance, I want to launch this product. Okay. This quarter, I'm going to talk to 100 customers, 100 potential customers. I'm also going to do ABCD. So placing clear objectives on what you need to do that are tied to that strategy. And then from this, you can define tasks. I want to talk to 100 customers. Okay, well, I'm going to pull together a list. I'm going to reach out to them, organize calls, whatever. So I tend to break down these plans into objectives and then into tasks. And everything will lead to that objective and ultimately your strategy. And this is how you keep going in the right direction. And whatever you're doing exactly to talk to these customers doesn't matter. Like your North Star is to talk to these customers to refine your business idea. And you need to do this for every single part. So every single like big strategic objective that you have, that can be, build your product. So you can break it down into measurable things, and you can break it down actually on things that you can do, during a week. So this is how you keep this productivity, is that what you need to do this week, what you need to do like this month, but keeping it flexible. You define objectives on a quarter maybe, and then what you need to do in the shorter term, and then you test. So, talking to 100 customers, sending emails doesn't work. Okay, well, let's adapt the strategy. I'm going to send LinkedIn messages, or I'm going to call them. Then I get better results. I've talked to 50 customers that way. So you keep adapting, but still with that direction in mind. And this is how you keep on moving in spite of, as you say, attention span. Well, you still have your KPIs or your metrics to hit. So for me, it's always about structure, right? I guess that's a recurring theme, is that idea, sure, plan, structure. Okay, I want to do this. Okay, fine, but with a direction and with some milestones that you want to hit.
Yeah. How do you know when it's maybe too soon or you've missed the boat to tweak that plan? In terms of, you just gave the perfect example, whether it's you start with emails, you're not getting a good result, you want to bring in LinkedIn messages or whatever else it might be. How do we not just start jumping from activity to activity, but actually establish, okay, what are the KPIs that I'm looking for and I'm measuring? And also, if this is the first time you're doing it, you're kind of pulling that out of thin air. So how do you balance that? I've never done this before. I really don't know what I'm looking for, but also I should have an idea of something to measure against.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that there is a risk of pivoting all the time, and then you go circle. You go, you just turn like just looking around and running around, still doing the same thing. I think that goes back to, for instance, I want to talk to 100 customers over 4 months. So it means I need to talk to customers on average 25 customers a month. If after 2 weeks I have talked to 0, maybe the way I'm doing it is wrong. If I've talked to a bit, so I think it's about having some kind of trend, and seeing the results. It's true, like sometimes it's not going to be clear cut. This is working, this is not working. Should I adapt? Should I not? That's why also, I mean, I tend to encourage people to talk to mentors, advisors, to talk to as many people as possible, get feedback. Entrepreneurs that have done, that have worked in, that have developed a similar business, they tend to be open. Even the ones that have failed, this is always a good one. You talk to entrepreneurs that failed in an area and try to see what went wrong. Was it the distribution? Was it the product itself? So to get that feedback, to try to nail, as you say, working on very limited data at first. So it's all experiments. So the most information you can get from people, the best. So, but yeah, it's never easy to know like when to pivot, because there's always this risk that you're not pushing hard enough. You're not, you're taking decisions based on the wrong information. For instance, hey, I'm launching a business and my customers don't want to talk to me, and you're like, yeah, it's normal. You're a new business and no one cares. Or so you need to also. That's why, like, having as many data points as possible to make informed decisions, not just based on I've sent 10 emails and no one answered to me. Yes, that's probably not enough information. And then you back this with, in your industry, on average, you get only like 1% response rate. And then that's how you will then filter, okay, well, that means I need to do at least 100 before I discard this strategy. So always try to get some validation one way or another.
That makes sense. I like it. So let's say we go through this whole process. We're now much more comfortable and confident with the plan we have and the execution schedule we have. What's a company look like after implementing this model and using it for, let's say, 12 months? What's the difference in company growth and culture and all these beautiful things that we need?
I think if you have this mentality from the beginning, you're much more structured around measuring success, measuring the path. So especially if you're a business that is doing well at first, eventually at some point you might not. So having this mentality already, that you're gonna, every roadblock, like how to tackle it, like that you're measuring success, you have this plan, this execution, this vision. This also helps if you're planning on bringing external, investors, capital, people, because it will be super clear the way you explain the trajectory, past and forward. So that's great for an investor, for instance. They know that you're very clear about what you're going to do with their money. Also, when you start bringing in A-listers that want this clear vision, this clear path to success. So I think being organized from the very beginning, knowing that an idea doesn't matter, as well as, you're going to maybe diversify your business, launch new products, maybe, going to new markets, like directly that actually doesn't, as I said, Doesn't matter. Oh, this other market is huge. Okay, it doesn't matter. How do I get in? How do I execute on that expansion? Or how do I launch this new product? What should I care about? What are all these things that I've done already for my business as a whole? For this new product, I need to do the same way. And I think being systematic as you build your business and you continue expanding your business makes a big difference down the line, because you're also much more structured. And I see it as well. If, for instance, you want to sell your business, the fact that it's very well organized, that it's very clear the path forward, makes it much easier, like to sell it. I've seen it, like businesses that do well but are very messy. At the time where I go in to try to organize things in order to sell it, makes it very complicated for everybody, and you need to dress it very nicely, and it takes a long time and a lot of effort on the entrepreneur, on whoever is helping. Whereas you have a business super well organized, super well structured, clear plan, clear execution, then whoever comes in can, it's clear what they're going to do with it. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have this idea that at some point you want to realize the value of realize your capital, sell your business, think about that this business needs to be like well-oiled, well organized for someone to come in.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. All this is great advice. Operating in this way is going to be just so much better and more organized and structured, the word you said, than the chaos that entrepreneurs usually find themselves in. So Tristan, thank you for being here. Where can the listeners learn more about you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. I also run a small media on fintech called Fintech Review, where I have a newsletter where I talk about innovation, entrepreneurship in fintech, in financial services. So they can definitely find me there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And for those of you watching and listening, wherever you are, make sure you subscribe. We love putting these episodes out every single day of the week to help you think a little bit differently about your business and hopefully grow it and scale it. And like Tristan said, realize those gains at some point in time and get out of your business. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode.